Well, everyone, good afternoon from almost Philadelphia. We have had torrential rain pour all day today, and finally the rain has stopped. I think that's a very good thing. I hope everyone is well. I hope everyone who is active in the program as a student is enjoying your assignments and the feedback that you get from the instructors. It certainly is, for me personally, one of the most fun things I get to do every day. So we've got some nice questions that have come in today. And I'm Char Nolan, one of the instructors on the chef instructional team. Great questions. Happy to be here today. And let's just start off with the first question. There we go. So this is from John B. Hello, John. He can't stop his vegetables from drying when he bakes oil free. Any hints greatly appreciated. Well, if you have a spray bottle that you might get from the dollar store or wherever, I guess now the $1.25 store, I make a little brothy, lemony kind of mixture of just water, basically, and stock. And I spray the vegetables, making sure, of course, when you have them on your sheet pan that's lined with parchment paper, that they're not overlapping or touching, because when that happens, you know that the vegetables will steam rather than roast. And I also keep an eye on them and make certain that my oven temperature is correct. If you haven't double checked the temperature of your oven, you may want to get an oven thermometer, because your oven might be heating higher than its LCD readout, which is sometimes the case. I'm somebody who really loves dry vegetables. So for me, I cook them at a high heat and make sure that I turn them. But I think if you spray them with a flavorful liquid, that will prevent them from burning and turning into, that crispy, dry kind of a vegetable. But I also suggest, John, that I love cooking my vegetables in an air fryer for exactly that reason, that they do come out, they cook evenly. There's a convection method going on, actually, and they just come out beautifully and consistently always finished together and at the same time. But I still use that little spray bottle of what I call Char's mix. So maybe you've got a John's mix coming up in your future. Hope that that question is helpful to you, and keep on roasting those vegetables. Sounds good to me. So this is from Phoenix. Phoenix attended the last office hours. Thank you very much. They are going to ask a question. If I want to grow food and turn my excess food into a small business, say canning or hydration, what product or crop might I begin with? Well, the first thing I'm going to suggest to you is that if you decide to go into making dehydrated vegetables, you've got to be mindful how time-consuming the process is. And I have a friend who lives in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, who started a food dehydration business, making little bags of kale chips. And she was selling 4 ounces of kale chips for an exorbitant amount of price, because what she had to take into consideration was not only the price of the kale and the price of the ingredients, but her electricity, and also the price of the dehydrator that you would use. And I have no relationship with the Excalibur people, but as you may know, I have an Excalibur because it is the best dehydrator. I know people who started out with one dehydrator and now they have rooms and rooms filled with. I would do a needs assessment. I would look around and see what's missing. Pardon me. When you look at companies like Rhythm, who make dehydrated kale chips and dehydrated beet chips and dehydrated mushrooms, they've got a big system going on. So if you're wishing to create an artisanal boutique kind of a product, you've got to look at your population and then think about what would be most cost effective and what you would love doing the best. So that would be my recommendation for you. And I hope that that's a helpful answer. And good luck with that. This is from Lynn H. Do you have a good recipe for kale pesto? I do. I have loads of kale and basil in my garden. Also, I'm playing around with dehydrating the stems of the kale and chard to make a green powder to add to my winter dishes. So a couple of things here, and thanks very much for the question, Lynn. Kale stems and chard stems can be bitter. So one of the reasons why you remove the kale from the stem is not just to make a tender kale dish, but also to remove any bitterness that might be in the dish. So I would think twice about making that powder from the dehydrated chard. Just a thought. As for the kale, excuse me, on Tuesdays, I work at a farm. So on Tuesdays, I get a big bounty of fresh vegetables. And what I have to do is then create a recipe that I will hand out next week to the patrons who come to this farm. And I should tell you that the farm is in North Philadelphia, and it's in a lot that was formerly a home. The home was taken down, and a beautiful farm was built, and we feed people who might be food insecure or who have little access to fresh vegetables. So last week, I got 2 huge boxes of chard and thought, what am I going to do? So here's what I did. I made a quick and easy kale recipe for a pesto. And here's what I did. First, you take the stems off the kale and boil them. And I boil them till they are a beautiful lighter green for about 15 minutes. And then when they're cooled, with my hands, I manually squeeze out all of the water. I chop the kale. Here's where it gets good. I put the chopped kale or chard into my food processor with a tub of hummus, plain old garlic hummus. I add more garlic and I add some nutritional yeast and put it in the food processor. Excuse me. I have a little bit of allergies that have been going on, and I apologize for that. Anyway, you're going to get a beautiful, delicious hummus that actually is going to be your pesto. If you want to, you can add some walnuts to it or walnut butter. If you have walnut butter, it takes a step away from having to use fresh walnuts, but play around with the flavors. What's traditionally in a pesto? You've got basil or kale. You've got garlic, and I like a little bit of lemon just to give it kind of like that little uplift of flavor. So I think that you would have fun with something like that. So this is from Kathleen S. So Kathleen, this is a question about making a Marsala sauce for chicken. And I'm not really proficient in cooking chicken, but I will tell you that there is an article that Richard has posted about how to make the perfect chicken Marsala. For those of you who are looking for something similar, we have that beautiful oil-free mushroom sauce that I make all of the time. And for people I know who love Marsala, they also love using this mushroom recipe. So hopefully the article will help you. But for those of you who love mushrooms, as I do, using that mushroom recipe from Ruby is a big, gigantic hit. And I hope that that is helpful to you. I like mushrooms. So today I'm drinking out of my mushroom mug, which I actually got at a mushroom farm. This is from Truly H. How do you recommend storing vegetables in the fridge? Well, good question. So this is a typical box of greens from Whole Foods Market. This plastic thing is called a clamshell. That's its business name. So when you get home from the grocery store, you're going to take a paper towel and just gently fold it in half and then gently line it on top here. And then when you store it in your refrigerator, you store it upside down so that any moisture that is released from the vegetables will right into the paper towel, and it prevents it from getting that sliminess that sometimes happens. So that's one thing that you can do. And then the other thing you can do is when you get home with your vegetables, you're going to clean them and take them off their stem and dry them. And then I put them in you can use a paper towel if you want, but I'm really trying to be a better environmental steward. Put them in a cloth and then put them right into a plastic bag. And then I like to leave it whole like this so I can slice it in half and put it on the grill. So the idea here is that you want to keep the moisture out, and using these towels is a great way to do that. So these 3 little hacks I find very helpful. And a few weeks ago, I was telling everyone how I store all of my berries and such in glass jars. And I have had strawberries last for up to 3 weeks. So I always love answering these questions about food storage, because I'm not sure if Peggy Bird is on here today, but Peggy Bird was a plant pro grad who then took the Waste Not course. And she and I often chat on the Facebook group about ways that we can be better environmental stewards. And I think that these are 3 good examples, because we don't want to throw our food out. So very good question. Thank you so much. This is from Susan M. Hello, Susan. Susan's in the Forks Over Knives 90-day course. They sure have a beautiful ad in their most recent issue of Forks Over Knives magazine. Do you have a favorite seasoning blend that you make, which is a favorite for you? So I'm a pretty basic person, but I happen to love granulated garlic and granulated onion. Mrs. Dash has a plethora of different flavors that you can use for salt substitution. And she does sell a sampler pack, and I believe Richard has that information, so that if you're interested in trying them. My favorite one it's called Mexican Lime. And why I love it is you can slice up some zucchini into zucchini coins and then dredge the zucchini in the Mrs. Dash lime and put it in either your air fryer or roast it, and it just comes out beautifully crispy. It has so much flavor. There's no oil and there's no salt. Another spice company that I love is called Penzey's, Penzey, and they have many, many salt-free blends that are also very delicious. If you go to your local grocery store, however, there is always a big selection of spices from Mrs. Dash. One other, and I don't have it here, but McCormick Spices has a new spice blend out that's also salt-free. It's called Sunshine Gold. It was created by Tabitha Brown, the vegan sensation who now has a talk show on the Food Network. And you can find the Sunshine Gold in your regular grocery store. It's usually in what's called a shipper. A shipper is one of those cardboard things that you see in the middle of the aisle that's usually in your way. So it's not in the regular McCormick aisle, but it's in a shipper, and it's a very popular item, and they can't keep it in stock. Sunshine Gold. It's got a plethora of spices, but it also has banana peel and turmeric in it. So I've tried it. It's very good, and you might like it too. So I hope that's helpful to you. Do I need to buy anything for the advanced plant-based cooking class starting in October, Sarah? Oh, goodness, Sarah. You know, getting ready for these live events, you run up and down the stairs, and I have a checklist and make sure I have everything. And here's what I'm going to say. We were on vacation last week, and I found myself at several thrift shops, and I bought a beautiful, beautiful Farberware saute pan for $3. And it must have been really old because it was made in the Bronx, New York. And I've been married for a very long time, and my first set of pots, which I still have, were Farberware. So I would look at the checklist and see if there's anything that you can either borrow from a friend or go to a thrift shop, right off the top of my head, I'm thinking that there isn't too much that you need. There is a grilling uh, chapter, and you've got to grill some vegetables or whatever. So we're requiring that you use an actual grill, not like a George Foreman grill, but we want to see how you learn to regulate heat on an open platform. But that's all I can think of right now at the top of my head. I hope that's helpful to you, and good luck. You'll have a lot of fun, and you'll be eating very, very well. So that's exciting. Okay. Hello, Angela. Good afternoon. Angela wants to know, why is starch king for Italian pasta, but not so much for udon, where they rinse the starch off? Angela T. I'm not sure I totally understand your question. Richard and I were discussing it. We're going to send that question to student services, and they might be able to answer the question best. I don't rinse my pasta off, but when I make Italian pasta, but I reserve some of the pasta water to actually add into it when I'm either saucing it or whatever. And it could be maybe a different type of flour, if you're using semolina versus the one that's used in the assignment for the udon. But we will get you the correct answer for that, Angela. Thank you very much for asking. This is from Maria V. Hi, Maria. How are you today? What things can you suggest to add to a soup to add a punch of flavor at the end of cooking? What are some different flavors to consider? So one of my favorite recipes in all of Ruby is what's called the simple cabbage soup recipe. And many of you will respond when you are writing about the assignment, saying it shouldn't be simple because it's so delicious and elegant. And it is one of my favorite soups in the world. At the end of that making of the soup, we ask you to layer the flavors using apple cider vinegar, some Dijon mustard, and also, those two ingredients. And when you do, it just sort of ignites all of the flavors. So I like that. I'm also a big fan of lemon. Lemon and salt share something in common with your tongue, that your taste buds are in the same exact place. So if you want to really elevate a dish, thinking that you're missing salt, using extra lemon is a great way to do that. I think go back to that recipe, and it's also open to everyone in the program, but it's a great recipe, and you will see how that beautiful soup all of a sudden just ignites. I will also say, if you're someone who does not like hot, spicy food, when you are making a soup as a student, and it says to add, let's say, a half a teaspoon of crushed red pepper, and you're not a fan, and then when I read the summary, it will say, oh, it was way too spicy. So do what you know and do what you like, and then just add in, when you're writing your summary, we're a family that doesn't really like hot, spicy foods, and instead of a half a teaspoon, we added an eighth of a teaspoon. So we know that you have tried that, but remember that you want to also eat this food and freeze it and give it to your neighbors and enjoy it, and share with everyone how much you're learning and how much you're enjoying what you make. So that would be my recommendation for that. Let me know how you make out, Maria. Those are my favorites. That one last thing about that is that a really fresh and delicious garnish, for example, some chiffonade basil, or you can just rip it. Some people say ripping it maintains the flavor better, or fresh parsley, or scallions, the green parts of scallions, just to sort of give it a little bit of a fresh vibrancy, also is a nice way to add flavor to your dish. So I hope that's helpful. Oh, this is from Laura C. I've just completed Plants Plus. Oh, congratulations. I think, Laura, you've completed Plants Plus, Plant Pro, and Everyday Vegan Desserts. And, I'm going to recommend doing the James Beard Waste Not course. Anyway, and wanted to thank you for being the informative, incredibly resourceful. Oh, goodness, you're going to make me blush. That's very kind of you to say, Laura. It's certainly enjoyable to have had you for so many times as a student, especially enjoying your beautiful photography and the way that you stage your mise en place and the way that you have your process and also your final dishes as well. So I'm going to wish you the very best. And actually, Laura brings up a great point. I wanted to just show these to you. These are called pinch pots. They're from the $1.25 store, and you get 8 of them for $1.25. And why I'm suggesting them is sometimes when I am looking at a mise en place photo, it has taken up your dining room table. There are 5,000 jars. I'm speaking from experience as a former Ruby student. So if you use something small like this and then put them close together, you'll get a tighter shot for your photo, if whether you're taking an overhead or sometimes called a flat lay of your mise en place. But these little things are so delicious. And I also use them. They are delicious. I use them when I teach. So this way, if I'm holding up an ingredient, everyone can see what's in it from here and from the top as well. So 8 of them for $1.25. It'll be the best thing ever that you purchased. And Laura, continued success in all that you do. And it's always a pleasure hearing from you. Thank you so much. Okay. Hi, Chef. Good hacks. Loving her new composting bin. Peggy, did you ever think in your life that you would be having a conversation with someone about a composting bin? And if you follow the Facebook group of the Plant Pro course, Peggy is always posting something really wonderful and useful about being a better environmental steward. And she and I were having a discussion about blueberries, about why blueberries are packaged in plastic, when in many other parts of the globe, Canada, Europe, blueberries are packaged in recyclable cardboard containers that are absolutely beautiful. So we'll have to figure that out, Peggy. But good. I have a kitchen top composting bin, and then I take it out to the yard. I got it at IKEA. I think it was like $5.98 or something like that. So good luck with your composting. You're going to have the most beautiful soil. And I can't imagine what you had done, though, before, what you made before you had all of the waste from your vegetables and whatnot. So Peggy, thanks so much. I always love hearing your adventures in the kitchen. All right. So this is from, hi, Charisse, how are you? For diabetes, what are your thoughts on oil, potatoes, and rice in recipes? Some of the diabetes plant-based cookbooks include potatoes, rice, and even maple syrup. Thoughts? How can I replace some of these items in recipes? So, Charisse, first I'm going to say, as I often do, that I'm not a registered dietitian, even though I studied at the eCornell class and learned so much about diabetes. So going back, looking at unprocessed foods, remember that our goal, or some people's goals, is to eat a whole food, plant-based, no oil diet. And that means eating foods that are unprocessed. If you look at processed foods, a lot of them have preservatives that are sodium-based that can affect a person. I work in an under-resourced community where people really enjoy sweet beverages. And so I've been teaching them to make sun tea, and a grocery store called the Grocery Store Outlet just opened, and have been transitioning them to enjoy the flavor of stevia, which is certainly better than using some of those other horrible sugar substitutes. You have to remember, I always say to people that there's no refined sugar in this recipe, but there is maple syrup. And if you look at the ratio of maple syrup in a recipe, comparing it to its counterpart that may have been granulated sugar, generally speaking, it's triple the amount. So fiber is helpful, as you know, so that's why we're using whole grains. And the rice that you mentioned would be a brown rice. If you were eating pasta, it would be whole wheat. And I think that here's my philosophy. Personally, I'm a person who jumps into the deep end of the pool. However, I know that not everyone is that way. So if we can teach people how to make gradual changes and how they choose their food and how they cook it, we're making progress. I'll give you an example. At the farm stand where I work every week, I take the bounty from the garden and I make it into a dish. And a few weeks ago, made a hummus sandwich with sliced tomatoes. The top of the bread was whole wheat and the bottom of the bread was white bread. But when I served it to them, I served them the white bread part because I knew that if I had served it to them as whole wheat, they would not have liked it at all. And then they took a bite out of it and they loved it. So looking at small gradual changes. In the Jane and Ann Esselstyn book, they do address this. I think the thing to remember is that we're working with people to take them away from eating ho-hos and Milky Ways and Little Debbie snack cakes and other things like that. So if you look at the ingredients and the chemicals and the amount of fat, salt, and sugar in processed foods, having them have a little bit of maple syrup is I think, okay. And I know many, many people who have reversed their type 2 diabetes by following these kinds of recipes without using artificial sweetener and still using that little bit of maple syrup. So a couple of things. Jane and Ann's book, which I hope you'll all enjoy, is number 8 on the New York Times bestseller list. So that's exciting. And the other thing is the Forks Over Knives magazine. It looks like it's not going to be available at your grocery store or at your CVS. So they're recommending that, I saw this online, it's the only reason why I know. They're recommending that you get a subscription to it. I enjoy the magazine. It has great recipes. We have a Ruby grad who writes for the magazine. He travels the globe searching for restaurants that serve whole food, plant-based, no oil food. He'll be in Philadelphia at the end of the month. I'm excited because I get to meet him and take him to a couple of restaurants that I enjoy going to. So let's see what else we have here. Sharice, I hope that was helpful. I always love your questions. Thank you so much. Oh, okay. And Richard just posted the link to be a plant-based woman warrior. And I think that I may have shared with you at some point in time that if you turn to page 41, I have an entry into the book talking about why I follow a whole food plant-based diet and why it has been beneficial to my general health and well-being. So I love the book, love Ann and Jane, love what they do, and I also love how they help people. Richard, what are we going to do? Richard is my producer today. We have lots of fun chatting beforehand. I can tell you he had yogurt for breakfast. I didn't tell him what I had. I had oatmeal. It's pretty boring. Richard, what do you suggest that we do? It's 2:30. I always have more answers in me. If anyone else has any questions, I would love to hear from you.
Yeah, we can just leave it for a few minutes and see if anybody has any more questions. And,
okay.
And if not, we'll just end it early.
Okay. All right. Well, Richard is the guru here. We'll wait a couple of minutes. If you live in the Philadelphia area, I'm teaching a couple of live in-person classes at the mainline school night. I'm teaching a plant-based class, and I'm teaching a plant-based and gluten-free dessert class in a high school. And why I say that, around here, if you're teaching in a school, even if it's not during the student hours, you're not allowed to cook with any kind of nut, which can sometimes be a challenge. So I'm going to be making a pesto using white beans instead of walnuts. And I think that will work. Oh, Laura just got her her forks over knives. Oh, yeah, that's right. Laura brings up a great point. They have a whole section on air frying, which one to buy. And then there's a bunch of delicious recipes that are quite enjoyable. And, the air fryers have really come down in price. I will tell you that one that I drag around with me when I teach outside of my home, it's made by Dash, Dash. It's $40. It just has dials on it. Cooks like a dream. I've made cake in it. It's a 4-quart. If you're a family, of course, you need more than a 4-quart, but it certainly does what it needs to do. So, Laura, that's a great point to bring up about the air fryers. I should have tagged that. Okay, this is from Maria. Thank you for the reply to the previous question. Is it possible to freeze cashew, sour cream, avocado ranch, and other oil-free dressings? My date paste did not stay soft once I froze it, as the Homeworld video said it would. Was it too liquid? My sense would be, yeah, it was too liquidy. Because once your freezer senses liquid, it might think that it's a cousin of an ice cube or something like that. As for freezing the dressings, Maria, I freeze everything. I don't like to waste food, and but the trick is I freeze it in small amounts. So whether you have silicone ice cube trays, or you have little jars or whatever. You don't want to freeze in a big thing because then it takes forever to defrost, and then you might end up throwing it out. So I would freeze in small amounts, date, and just remember where it is in your freezer so that you remember that you made that. But yeah, I think that's a great thing to do. Yeah. This is from Lynn H. Do you have a good lima bean recipe with time? So the easiest thing to always think about is using your 3 aromatics or your mirepoix, which, as you know, are carrots, onions, and celery. I like to dice it really nice and fine so that it has a rich vegetable flavor. And maybe you have some homemade stock. If you're using a low sodium stock, the new vegetable stocks or broth from formerly Engine 2, now Plant Strong, are very good. They're available at Whole Foods Market. I also like the Pacific brand, and their low sodium is also very good. But if you want to start any good soup, I would make a lima bean soup. That would seem delicious to me. I'm also thinking that after you make the soup, taking the cooked lima beans and then converting them into a delicious hummus by adding some garlic would be totally, totally delicious. And I think the color would be beautiful as well. I think that would be nice. When you're plant-based, part of having people or helping people embrace this way of eating is getting them used to eating colorful, bright food. I think the first time that I ate kale hummus, I was not impressed because it was so green, and I thought, oh my gosh. But now I look forward to seeing bright greens and bright yellows and bright oranges. So I think the gentleness of the green of the lima bean would be a great hummus. If you make that hummus, Lynn, I want to see a picture of it. So tag me on social media. I'm on Instagram, by the way, as Char_Nolan, Nolan. I'm counting on you. Hello, Charisse again. How do I make my no-meat meatballs stick together when simmering them in sauce? They soften and turn mushy. So there's a couple of tricks. One is I like to use a flax egg. That's my favorite. And make sure that when you make the flax egg and you incorporate it into your mixture, that it has been incorporated really, really well. You're going to use your hands to make sure that it gets in there. And then I like to cover it and put it in the refrigerator for about a half an hour, 45 minutes. And then when it comes out, I use a scooper, like a 2-ounce ice cream scoop. And then before you put them in, let them set again. And I guarantee you that you will make beautiful, delicious meatballs that do not fall apart. However, you can also do this. You can also bake them first So you would put them on a sheet pan, bake them for about, I'm going to say between 23 to 25 minutes if you like them crispy. And then once they've cooled, then put them in the sauce. So being of Italian heritage, when my grandmother would make her meatballs, she always put hers right in the sauce. So that's how I make my bean balls. But then I have a lot of other friends who like to bake them first. So you do have that alternative. But flaxseed meal is the ticket. Hope that helps. This is from Nancy W. I saw recipes that use baking soda in soaking of Chex peas and cooking with baking soda. Can I use the liquid as aquafaba? I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know. I don't know that it would have the same viscosity as the aquafaba. You know, when they do studies about the viscosity and the pH level of aquafaba versus an egg white, they're very, very similar. So I think it would depend what it looked like. My friends who make beans from scratch do not use that water to make, whipped desserts or whatever. Very good question. Oh, this is a nice comment from Laura. She just wanted to add that she began with Forks Over Knives course, which at the time I would never have imagined I'd have been a candidate for the other plant-based courses. And well, the rest is history with a great future. Yes, she does have a great future, and she is a most meticulous. She dots all of her I's, and her summaries are beautiful, but her photos are lovely. And if you don't mind, I think, Laura, that your handle on Instagram is artfully plant-based, and you can see firsthand how beautiful all of her food is. So she started with Forks Over Knives, then she did Plant Pro, then she did Everyday Vegan Desserts, and then she did Plants Plus. So I feel as though we've got to get her a cap and gown and put her on our website or something as a supreme student. So, well, this is always enjoyable. And one of the things that I love best is reading all of your questions. And I love chit-chatting with my producer, Richard, beforehand. We always have lots of fun talking about, things that we love to do. And we always talk about the weather. But we get to the nuts and bolts and talk about the fun that we both have at Ruby. He as the digital creator guy that he is, and I as a member of the chef instructional team. I think, Richard, we've been on now for 40 minutes, and I don't see any other questions. If you have any questions, you can always feel free to email me at char@ruby.com. And I always love hearing from you and, creating a dialogue about any questions that you might have. So without any further ado, I'll be signing off from the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection, and wish everyone a very happy day of happy, healthy cooking. Have a great day.